Hey folks, and welcome to another Whip Up Wednesday. Today we're going to be working on making a red sauce, super simple sauce. We are going to get started quickly. So just to clarify, you're going to need two pots for this. So we have a stock pot, we're going to make the sauce in that, and then we have a smaller pot, and we're just going to boil some pasta in that toward the end of the sauce. So to start, 2 large carrots, 2 small onions, and a head of garlic. We're gonna need 2 cloves of this, but like I think I've said before, you can use any measurement you want. Recipe says 2, you can use 1, 3, 5, up to you. So we've got 2 bowls set aside. We're gonna use those, 1 for the carrot, 1 for the onion. We're gonna start by sauteing some onion, but first let's process some vegetables. So we're cutting these ideally to about that size, and once it gets close to that thickness, we're just going to cut this remaining carrot in half. So guys, just remember when we are cutting an onion, we've got this, we're going to cut the ends off. So we've got this central piece, still has a skin on it, we're going to cut that down the middle. And then once that is halved, we can just peel that outer layer right off. Awesome, and we're going to take 2 cloves off of this, so if you remember, you're going to put kind of 1 thumb on the stem and use the stem to separate some of the cloves from the bulb. Right on. I've got 3 here, so I'm just going to use 3. And what we're doing is cutting the end, not the long end, but the kind of coarse end. We're going to remove those because that's going to keep the skin on the outside of the garlic. Once those are gone, we can peel that. Now the garlic is going to be one of the last 2 additions to the sauce. And because we're not putting it in the pan ahead of time, it's more for, you know, kind of infusing that flavor toward the end. So it doesn't have to be like a crazy fine cut. We don't have to mince it, but you can definitely cut it up pretty small. All right, great. So now we are going to turn the heat on this first pot. Wait for that to get hot, and then we're going to add the oil. Alright folks, so at this point the pot is hot. We're going to take a little bit of olive oil. We're just going to drizzle it in. Not too much. It's not like we're deep frying anything, but you know, that's maybe 3/4 of a tablespoon. I'm going to kind of make sure that that is everywhere that we're going to want it to be. Going to make sure you have something to stir the onions. And yeah, remember those onions you cut up? We're going to want to do this on about a medium heat. Alright, now that those have started to brown, we are going to add 2 28-ounce cans of crushed tomatoes. Alright, now we're going to wait for that to start to simmer. Once that starts to simmer, we are going to add in those diced carrots, the beef, and the spices. Alright folks, now it looks like our onion and crushed tomato mix is boiling, so what we're going to do, we're going to add our green little spice. You know, today I'm using rosemary. You could use basil, thyme, sage, rosemary. I would say 2 tablespoons. So I actually have a little more than 2 tablespoons here. We're going to add that in now just to make sure that that flavor gets fully integrated. I know, that looked like a lot. It's just a little more than 2 tablespoons. We're going to mix that in. And next we're going to add our carrots. I will say also, when you do go to stir this, make sure that you scrape the bottom of the pan. It is still possible for onion to get stuck there, and then that onion will cook a little bit more because it's so close to the metal. It could add a different texture, it could add a different flavor. Just be sure that nothing is sticking to the bottom. So we're going to add actually, you know what, let's add garlic first. Taking the cutting board, using the spine of the knife, get that garlic in there. At this point, I'm going to put the water on to boil for the pasta. We're going to add the carrots to the stock pot. And again, those should be diced pretty small. So like smaller pieces can be that thick. The wider pieces should be cut in half and about that thick. Gonna mix those in. Now we're gonna add the beef. Now you can do this right out of the package. I transferred the beef to a different bowl just so it's easier to grab, but basically, and I should stress, whenever you're handling raw meat, it's important that you not make contact with other surfaces. So once you touch this, don't touch the stove, don't touch the spoon, don't touch a knife. I mean, you can have one hand that's clean, one hand that has touched raw meat, and as soon as you're done with the meat, wash your hands. Raw meat is one of the greatest sources of foodborne illness, basically, in a kitchen if it's mishandled or not treated properly in terms of temperature or the time that it's been out. Never let it sit for a long time at room temperature, which is why we keep it refrigerated, and always be sure to wash your hands after you handle it. So we're going to take a little chunk. Taking a chunk that big, I'm just kind of pressing it together a little bit. You could roll it into a ball if you want. You don't even really have to press it together. And we're just going to start adding these in. This one I'm going to flatten. We got a little flat chunk. Add that right in. Kind of the smaller the chunks, the better. We're not really going for meatballs, but if you feel like doing meatballs, you can do that. Alright, y'all, now that that is in, all we've got to do, right, make sure we stir that in, make sure that you're touching the bottom of the pot when you are stirring, now that we have all the stuff in there. And now we pretty much can just turn that temperature down a little bit, kind of to low. Make sure we keep that on a simmer. We want the temperature high enough that over time the beef is going to be able to cook. And now all we really have to worry about, other than continuing to not let anything stick to the bottom of this pot, is getting that to come to a rolling boil, adding our pasta, cooking that for about 11 minutes, straining it, and we're good. Alright folks, our water has come to a boil. We're going to take our pasta. We're working with boxed pasta today. Pasta from a box. But if anybody's interested in learning to make pasta, shoot us an email and we can make that happen next session. So I'm estimating we're going to use about 3/4 of the box. Let's go with the whole box. We're just going to do the whole box. Take another spoon, because that one, right, it's got tomato and all that on it. Now we're going to let that cook from the time you add it in for 11 minutes. So take a look at your watch, right? So I can say that at about 5:45, it will have been 11 minutes. So maybe you have a clock in your kitchen, maybe you have a timer, maybe you have a cell phone, and just make sure that you're keeping track of that time. Once that's done, we're going to strain it. I think that'll mean that the beef will have been cooking for about 20 minutes. So I would say about 20-25 minutes is good for that. So once the pasta is completely strained, we can integrate the two. We're good to go. Alright folks, so you're going to take your metal strainer. You're going to turn the heat off of the pot with the sauce. Turn the heat off of the pot with the water. Take that pot, right, that has the pasta, the water, take the strainer, head over to the kitchen sink. And we're just going to strain that pasta. Alright folks, we took it out of the pot, put it into the strainer, strained it, put it back in the pot, and now we can start to add this to the sauce. Make sure we get to all of it. Integrate that as well as you can. So again, I used a full box of pasta for the sauce made with 2 cans. And that's that.